Hey folks, and welcome back to West Yorkshire Retro Gamer. After 13 games have been played this season, I just thought I'd have a quick look at the table, just see where everyone's at, and ultimately what this means for Leeds United. Not last night, yesterday afternoon, Leeds played in their 4-3-3 formation for the first half and were severely dominated by Manchester City, and somehow were only going in at half time 2-0 down. And then in the second half, Farke made changes straight off the bat. He took off James and Nonto, he replaced them with Biol and ECL, and went into a 5-3-2 out of possession and a 3-5-2 in possession. And until the 89th minute and 59 seconds, it worked an absolute treat. Leeds got back into the game, they pulled it back to 2-2, and deservedly so. Man City even resorted to cheating by Donnarumma, the goalkeeper, going down with a fake injury, creating a massive amount of added on time at the end of the second half, and ultimately allowing the Man City players to go and have a chat with Guardiola. Guardiola has come out and said that he had not spoken to Donnarumma. He had not told him to go down and cheat. Farke has supported Guardiola in that stance, in that he has not aimed any criticism at Guardiola. The criticism is aimed at Donnarumma. It's a bit difficult to decipher as to who was the instigator of it all, because the Man City medical team kept kind of rubbing Donnarumma's leg or whatever, and then kept looking over at the Man City bench. Now, some of that might have been in a sense of, if it was all genuine, are Man City prepared to bring on James Trafford, which according to Guardiola he was. But then on the other hand, it could have just all been a ruse and just a method of being able to stop Leeds' momentum. Because you could see the look on Guardiola's face. He was worried, he was concerned, he was shocked, and he panicked. Could be argued that maybe Farke panicked at half time, which is what instigated the changes at half time. But it's very rare that you see Guardiola looking that panicky. You can see it in his face, and that wasn't an act for the camera. Like, he genuinely didn't see this coming. But this kind of crap needs to be cut out. Some people might argue, well, why don't Leeds do it? Why don't Leeds occupy all these dirty tactics? I don't think it's in Farke's mantra to do too many things that would constitute cheating. Guardiola even brought it up in his press conference, and I don't know if there was maybe an element of sarcasm in it, but basically saying that he didn't want Man City to get fined. Obviously, because they've got this ongoing investigation of about 115 charges against them or whatever. He even mentioned that because Daniel Farke's press conference after the match was quite long, that Guardiola was half an hour late starting his. I mean, we know that Daniel Farke doesn't do short press conferences. He's a bit like me, he talks too much. I don't know if that's just how Germans are when they do the press conferences, or if it's just Daniel Farke. I'm not too sure. Either way. So yeah, for 44 minutes and 59 seconds, Leeds were superb in that second half. And then going into the 90 plus minute, again, it's something that puts the match into the same category as the Fulham match and the Bournemouth match, where we have dropped points. We deserved a draw, but lost. Against Fulham, we deserved a draw and lost. Against Bournemouth, we deserved a win and drew. That's 4 points dropped. So, when you look at the Premier League table, if Leeds had got what they deserved this season, then they would be on 15 points. And this would put them up to 16th place, which would look a little more comfortable. And not quite as dire as it looks at this moment in time. The amount of losses for all three teams in the drop zone right now is pretty poor, to say the least. And then when you look at the form of both West Ham and Nottingham Forest, and you see that in the 10 games that those two teams have played, that they've only got 4 losses between them. Actually identical form for the last 5. 2 wins, 1 draw, and 2 losses, which has basically brought West Ham and Nottingham Forest up to the same kind of levels that Leeds and Burnley were at. Because obviously, in the last 5 for Leeds and Burnley, who also have identical records in the last 5, it is 1 win and 4 losses. So there's a shift in form between Leeds and Burnley and Forest and West Ham. Wolves doomed. They're gone. They're absolutely gone. What was the score between them and Villa, just out of interest? Only 1-0. Right, so they didn't get hammered. I mean, they weren't playing West Ham, so they couldn't be hammered. Yeah, terrible dad joke. Anyways, Wolves are down, which again is just even more confirmation of what's been going on all season for them. 13 matches, 0 wins is pathetic. And to only amass 2 draws, 7 goals scored is absolutely feeble. Conceding 28 is absolutely humongous. And don't get me wrong, my team ain't much better in that department. But 2 points on the board. I mean, you could get Marcelo Bielsa in charge of them and they wouldn't survive. You could get Jose Mourinho in charge of them, they wouldn't survive. You could get Guardiola in charge, they wouldn't survive. Ancelotti in charge, they wouldn't survive. Wolves are so poor. They literally could go down as one of the worst teams in history. The records that Derby and Sheffield United have set in previous seasons, the way things are going at the moment, Wolves could be in that territory. And I don't think that the Wolves fans will be oblivious to that. I think they will be quite aware. You could even include Southampton last season as well. They were absolutely terrible. So, thankfully, Leeds aren't as bad as that. And to be honest, with a lot of the games this season, Leeds haven't looked like they're going to get destroyed every week. Just the Arsenal game. But every other week, we've looked competitive for the majority. So, that gives me a little bit of hope. What happened in the second half yesterday gives me a little bit of hope. And ultimately, if Farke is willing to start games with the 5-3-2/352, if he's willing to start games using that system, especially against the so-called larger teams, then maybe we get ourselves out of this mess. You know, we've got enough quality wingers on the bench to change the system up and go into a 4-4-2, a 4-3-3, a 4-2-3-1, 4-2-1-2, 4-3-1-2, 4-3-2-1, whatever. You know what I mean? There's enough there. There's enough in that Leeds squad to change system to almost any formation. But we need to start matches with two up front. It caused the Man City defence so much hassle. They couldn't prepare for it. Chelsea now only have 3 days to prepare for what could, what originally looked like it was going to be a fairly routine match for them, to now what could be a far more trickier prospect. Especially with it being at Ellen Road as well. It's, Leeds at home have, for the majority have looked very competitive. We haven't looked out of place at home whatsoever. And that second half against Man City away is, I would say, is comfortably our best. It's one of our best second half performances of the season, and it's also one of our best away performances of the season. The second half in isolation, not the first half. So it proves that we can play away. Proves that we can compete away against, one of the best teams in the league. A team that has been massively invested in. When you look at the prices that all of the bought players have joined for, it's a heavily, expensively amassed squad. So, regarding the table, this is the primary reason that I wanted to do this video. All the teams have played 13 as of recording. So as I say, Wolves are done, and Wolves were done about 6 games ago. To be honest, they show nothing. Burnley and Leeds and Forest and West Ham, well, West Ham and Forest, whatever. They're all in a very similar situation right now. The only major difference is the form. That Leeds and Burnley are struggling, West Ham and Forest are not. That's the difference. But go back 5 games ago, and it was a different story. Leeds and Burnley were doing okay, West Ham and Forest were struggling. So it just shows that within the space of 4 or 5 games, things can change. And once Leeds get through this difficult trio of Manchester City, Chelsea and Liverpool, that things might just start going in the right direction if Daniel Farke can avoid going back into stubborn mode. And I don't have a lot of hope about this, because with the press conferences that Daniel Farke has done since the Man City game, people have been asking him, why haven't you done 5-3-2, 3-5-2 in previous games? And he said, well, if everyone did that, then everyone would beat Man City. An absolutely ridiculously stupid comment. He also reckoned that the 5-3-2, 3-5-2 wouldn't necessarily work against every single team. I'm not suggesting that it would. But then on the other hand, you could make it work against any team. If you just find the right fit, the right, it's clearly a system that could work. Find your strongest 11 for that system. Stick to it as much as you can. And then just bring other players into the mix. You've got the option of reverting to 4-3-3, 4-4-2, whatever. In a second half, if you feel it might actually help and change things for the better. But at this point now, if you start with the 5-3-2/3-5-2, give it a chance. I've seen some Leeds United content creators suggesting that Farke should be sacked for the first half against Man City. I think that if Farke was to get sacked after the Man City game, would be extremely harsh. You can't sack it. I don't feel that you can sack him, for the Man City first half in isolation. You've got to look at what's happened across the entirety of the season so far. And he has basically, discovered something in a match where maybe he wasn't really expected to discover anything in terms of something that could potentially work. So, what does this mean for Leeds in terms of the table? I just hope that Farke does stick to the 5-3-2/3-5-2, at least for the next two games. Start the next two games with that formation. Give it a proper chance. Give it a chance over 90 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever. And just see if it bears any fruit. Because we need to, whatever the case, regardless of how good it felt yesterday, getting back into that game and how well the boys were playing, I was so proud of the performance in that second half. From everybody involved, from Farke and his coaching team, down to the players themselves who were on that pitch performing. I was proud of every single one of them. Because if no changes had been made, and some managers wouldn't change, even at 2-0 down and it being a practical domination. So some managers are so stuck in the ways that they wouldn't have changed. Farke, whether he had to bite his lip and kind of grit his teeth and be like, alright then, we'll change it. I don't want to, because I want my 4-3-3 to work. Because I want us to play football, I don't want us to play hoofball, or I don't want us to play low block park the bus, or you know what I mean. He at least temporarily overcame his stubborn nature and was adaptable to make changes, and the changes almost worked. Certainly for 44 minutes and 59 seconds they worked. So, what does this mean for Leeds in terms of the table? Unfortunately, Fulham were somehow able to beat Tottenham Hotspur at Tottenham's ground. I have no idea how. They won 2-1 in the end. And unfortunately, I think that at least temporarily, this takes Fulham out of the problem. And again, look at how close it is from Brentford down. 19-19, 18-18, 18-17. That cluster there is extremely close. And it's within the space of one win. So, and you can almost include Palace in the mix there, I guess. But ultimately, this relegation battle now is currently, at least, between Forest, West Ham, Leeds, Burnley. Forget Wolves. They're not in the conversation. Unless their form dramatically changes over the next 5 games, they're done. And they're against Forest next. So we'd have to assume that Forest are going to win theirs. West Ham, they've got Manure. Who is it? Where is it being played? Been played at Scum Trafford. Right. And Manure are 7th with 6 wins, 3 draws, 4 losses, scored 21, conceded 20. So they score a lot, but they concede a lot. But the Formers only lost 1. And West Ham's only lost 2. That'll either be a draw or it'll be a win to Manure, I think. Leeds. Now we're at home against Chelsea. Now if Farker goes with the 5-3-2/3-5-2, I think we could get something from that. Based on what I saw in that second half, if we assume that Chelsea are going to be the similar kind of difficult prospect that Man City were, I just think that there is a possibility. There's a possibility that we could go toe to toe with them, but it depends on what Farker does. So let's go on the air of positivity and say a draw. For now. We'll have a better idea once we know the team sheet and the formation. Burnley, they've got Palace. Ugh. See, I think, like, when you look at Palace's stats, they're very balanced, aren't they? Like, they're only in 9th. But when you look at it, they've had 5 wins and 5 draws. Only lost 3. Scored 17, so they've scored more than they've played. They've only conceded 11, which is less than they've played. A +6 goal difference and 20 points on the board. It's a very, very solid season, isn't it, for Palace? Like, it's one of these that's not super spectacular, but it's very, very solid, isn't it? There's a lot of teams that would be quite happy with that kind of record right now. Look at Liverpool. Conceded 20 goals. Palace have conceded 11. I don't know who else is in a bit of a weird slump. I don't know. Bournemouth's form isn't right good. I didn't think Bournemouth were that good when Leeds played them. But again, Bournemouth, they score a lot of goals, but they concede a lot. It's. I feel like every team's having a very different season to even though there are teams with very similar statistics. There's a lot of teams with a very different kind of outcome, if you like, so far. And you could argue that Crystal Palace have got they've had one of the most solid starts of any team in the division, but they only find themselves in 9th, probably because of the number of draws. They are quite draw heavy. They've drawn as many as they've won, but it means that they've lost less. They score more and concede less, have a good goal difference, and 20 points on the board. So, let's have a quick look at the top end. So Chelsea are actually beating Arsenal right now. Deal. How long's left? It won't say unless we go on to it. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you play any of the current top 3, it's going to be incredibly difficult. Who did Chelsea lose to? Sunderland. Oh, well, Sunderland's a bit of an anomaly right now, aren't they? It's weird from Villa as well. I didn't think Villa were amazing when they were against us. Look at that, Liverpool actually beat Villa. Like, Liverpool's season so far, they either win or they lose. They don't draw. And look at that, 20 goals scored, 20 goals conceded. So it's such a weird season for them. Manure started bad and then got better, and their only loss was against Everton at Scum Trafford. Wow. It's a strange season, folks. Like, it is a really weird season. Is it becoming like the Championship that on the day anyone can beat anyone? I don't know. Are Tottenham really doing that much better under Thomas Frank than what they did last season? They've lost as many as they've won. They're scoring a lot, but still conceding a fair chunk. They walloped Everton. Lost to Chelsea, okay. That's not a disaster. Drew with Man U, not a disaster. Got walloped by Arsenal. But they get beat by Fulham. At home. Yeah. Like, Newcastle. So Newcastle beat Fulham. But but look at that, they lose to West Ham 3-1. They lose to Brentford 3-1. But then they can beat Manchester City and they can beat and they walloped Everton. Like, what? Oh, this is so strange. Like, Everton get walloped by Spurs, drew with Sunderland, beat Fulham, beat Manure, and then get walloped by Newcastle. Bournemouth, walloped by Spurs. Hold on, no, I'm on Tottenham's. Sorry. So Bournemouth. Oh, hello. Oh, there's been an equaliser. Look at that, they're 1-1 now. What do you know? Yeah, Bournemouth. They beat Forest. No surprise there. Got beat by Man City. No surprise there. Oh God, they got thumped by Villa. Drew with West Ham. And got beat by Sunderland. You got to get the feeling that maybe Bournemouth are starting to be at the level that they were expected to be at. As I say, if you go all the way back to when Leeds played against Bournemouth, Leeds should have beaten Bournemouth. They got very lucky to equalise in the 90-something minute. So that could easily have been 3 draws and 5 losses. It really could. Wouldn't have moved them position-wise very much, but it all counts. So yeah, it's a strange season, very, very strange, and I don't know what to make of it. The good thing is from a Leeds perspective, they're not out of it. They're not like Wolves. They're not cut adrift. After 13 games. Still a lot of games to be played, still a lot of points to be won. We've got to try and sort that goal difference out. It's too many conceded. But, and it's a big but, if Farke is willing to give this 5-3-2, 3-5-2 a chance, could that be the catalyst? Because if you start with 2 strikers up front, potentially you've got more chance of scoring goals. If you start with 5 at the back, you've got the potential to be tighter defensively. I don't have me UEFA coaching badges, but I've watched enough football over the years to have gained an idea as to what might work and what might not. So, yeah, I don't know. The next 2 games are still going to be incredibly difficult for Leeds. But after that, could we maybe start just slowly climbing up that table? I would take a bunch of draws right now, just to slowly, gradually get ourselves out of this mess. We don't want to spend too long in the bottom 3 because eventually, mentally, it will take its toll on the players and probably Farke and his coaching team. We've got to start picking up some points. And again, I think that at Ellen Road, I think we will pick up some points. I think we look alright at home, generally speaking. That second half away performance just came completely out of the blue. We've been so bad away this season, so bad. But that second half against Man City just gave me a little bit of hope, especially away. If we use that away from home, that might be the way forward. At home, time will tell. We'll have to see. But I'm going to leave it there, folks. Big thank you for watching. Do please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Please give the video a like. Please hit the hype button if that's available. Put your comments below. How does the season look so far in general for everyone in the Premier League? How does it look for Leeds United? Do you think that Leeds United under Daniel Farke can get out of this mess? let me know in the comments below. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time. Bye for now.